Hey guys, so today I want to talk about an experience, how I learned. The way you learn affects the way you write. Okay? I was recently reading a book from this woman who is a really cool woman, and she's a really great writer. And I was reading her book about this mage who is being chased by this kingdom and is in love with this prince, but they hate each other, and it's very engaging. And then she finds out she's living with a bunch of people that sneaker are smuggling her out of the country. She finds out that the people smuggling her out are vampires. And this taught me a really interesting thing about the way we learn is the way we write. Now, the book I would say was really, really, really good up until two specific parts. One I won't get into, but well, no, they're all related. Basically, what happens is the character gets attacked by this mermaid, and then finds out that the reason the mermaid attacked her was because the mermaid's going to eat people, and that she's ends up also finding out that she's living with vampires. And it was really, really cool and super interesting. But what was interesting is when this was the most interesting part of the book, this is also when the writing became its weakest. And the reason it became its weakest is because you can tell how she learns. And what do I mean when I say that? So the reason didn't work, first off, was when the mermaid attacked her, it was incredibly safe. Like, I didn't feel the girl was in any level of danger whatsoever. So the first thing I felt was that the writer had never been in a situation where they'd truly been in danger. There was a line where they said, like, I loosened my bladder. And I was like, no one says I loosened my bladder when a creature is attacking you. You pissed yourself. You fucking pissed yourself. You peed your pants, is what they say. They don't say, I loosened my bladder. But it was very safe. It was very, like, the way she learns. And the reason I'm going to say this is relevant is because, like, so I'm in Utah right now. And this person, love him to death, white, like, kind of Mormon person. And actually, I don't want to box her into that because she's so much more than that. But what I was going to say is that you could see the culture infecting her writing because it was very safe and it was trying to be very proper for a very improper moment. And it was like that moment when a creature is attacking you is not the time to be proper. So this is where your writing is affected by your lifestyle. And if you're trying to be proper in a situation where propriety isn't necessary, and it's going to obviously make that situation more awkward. And in real life, you would get freaking hurt or it wouldn't work. And it shows up in your writing, it loses that authenticity. And that's what disengages people, right? And this is where a lot of these people who are stuck on propriety and doing things the right way, this is where they lose people because it's like you're so focused on doing things your way, you're losing the authenticity, and that's what disconnects you from people. The second thing was very emblematic of this issue, and this is why I bring up the fact that she's white and Mormon or whatever, is because so in Utah, a lot of the people are, just like white and Mormon, right? And that's just what they're here. If you don't know the history of them, Mormon pioneers came here, Brigham Young, look it up, history of Utah, a lot of white Mormons here. So the reason I bring it up is because a lot of Mormons here, when they don't really discuss like faith and high level conversations because everyone is the same faith, right? So if everyone around you is the same faith, they don't really talk about it. And they go to church and they get lectured to. And they'll say they'll have meetings where they're supposed to talk about it, but most of the time it's people standing over a pulpit and talking at them, right? And so their understanding of God, their understanding of the universe, their understanding of everything they believe comes from someone standing up on a pulpit and lecturing them. And then on top of that, when they learn about history, when they learn about social studies, when they learn about math, most of them have gone to public school. An American public school is a teacher standing in front of the class lecturing. So what happens then is that most of the time when you get someone talking about lore, someone talking about the history of a people, someone talking about all the stuff that makes up the foundation of a society, these people go back to how they learned it. Someone standing in front of a classroom and lecturing them. The problem is when you write this in a book, it doesn't engage people, just like it doesn't engage people in school, just like it doesn't engage people in church. But the problem is we do it anyway. And One of the most difficult parts about writing is breaking this habit. But it's not a habit you break by learning how to become a better writer. You do it by learning how to learn better, right? So most of the time, this is why travel is so important. This is why learning other languages with other people is so important. Because when you go and you travel, you learn that when I'm learning a language, it's not someone standing in front of a classroom teaching me. It's going to the supermarket and this guy saying like cuánto like what como like como se dice necesito practicar mi español like como se dice esta cuántas años vives aquí, right? It's people speaking to you in real time. When you're in Malagasy, it's like manawana ino vovo mi tiaku mi vadacha ti miarakam now, like that, and they're like, wait, what's going on? And they're looking at the context clues. They're looking, oh, I'm at the store right now. They're looking at this cough. That's how real learning happens in the real world. But if you're never in those situations, you can't write about it because you've just learned from someone sitting in a pulpit and lecturing at you. And you didn't learn most of it. How many of you learned anything? How many of you took Spanish for 4 years and didn't learn anything about it? It's because someone was sitting and lecturing you. So when you're reading a book where a character is sitting on a pulpit and lecturing you, you disengage. And her book was so good and so amazing. And then there's this part where the vampires are talking about their vampire lore and talking about how they became vampires. And it was fucking awful. I hated it because it was just like someone standing in front. And I liked the lore. The lore was even interesting, but just the way it was presented, how it came up in the story, it was like, no, please, not right now, not the time. This is not how to do it, right? And I realized she couldn't help it because it's like that's probably how she learned her lore. Her lore, her personal lore of whatever she believes. I'm pretty sure she's Mormon. So Jesus Christ, Joseph Smith, Book of Mormon was someone, she learned all that from someone standing on a pulpit and lecturing her, right? Doing it year after year after year. And that's probably how she learned it. And if she's American, learned her history from someone sitting there lecturing her. And that's how 99% of you, when you talk and you're like, oh, I have a hard time doing lore dumps. The reason you do lore dumps is because the only way you've ever learned history, the only way you've ever learned like anything probably is someone sitting in front of a classroom and lecturing you. And when you didn't like it then, people aren't going to like it when they read it in your book. It's that simple. They're not going to like it. It's not going to work. So how do you find it engaging? Well, what were times you engaged that you did like it? One of the best parts in Twilight, which is hard to say because I'm not really a super fan of those books, but like when Bella was going out and researching vampires on the internet, that worked because I've looked something up on the internet. I know what it's like to type in the search query and go through that information. That sequence is an engaging sequence because that's how interesting learning is done. It starts with a question and someone investigating it. So this is how, when you're doing lore in a story, you need to emulate how you learn interesting occasions in real life. But if you haven't experienced that, you can pretend and keep trying to write that, or you can actually decide, you know what, let me actually just go learn something about somebody else and just write about that experience. And what's crazy is when you do that enough times, when your mode of learning isn't someone standing on a pulpit and lecturing you, but your mode of learning becomes going out and talking to people and speaking a language by being in an environment and being engaged, it naturally comes through in your writing. And then what happens is you naturally start writing more engaging lore dumps. You naturally start writing more engaging scenes because you've lived it and your brain knows how to subconsciously pull from that. But the problem is most people have only been sat and lectured to. So when you try to write it, all you can do is write something is where someone's sitting and lecturing to you. And that's not engaging. So if you want to write more engaging lore, you need to be more engaged in your own learning. And as you are becoming more engaged in your own learning, you will then be able to educate people in a more engaging way. So that is my advice for that. I'm going to send her this video because she's an she's an amazing writer, and I just felt like this is an opportunity for growth, and there's an opportunity to really see this amazing story come out. And it was just very interesting how like just you see a lot of these patterns, and I've worked with so many different clients, and I can just say definitively that like your writing, it doesn't define you. Your definition of you comes out in your writing. And so, especially if you're a good writer. So, for her, it was just as simple as, hey, spend more time learning about other people and expanding the way you learn, and then you will write a more engaging lore sequence. And it's as simple as that, guys. So that's where your writing style can affect you. I'm going to put both of these. I made another video about it, but I'm going to make this one as well, put this out there. I think it's really good to know. But something I think a lot of people don't realize is like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, and that becomes very apparent when you write. So keep writing. Super excited. I had a really interesting dream about it. I'm actually going to write a book about it. So it's super cool. I'll talk to you guys about that dream soon. But I'm just going to post it on a story. Anyway, stay happy, stay healthy, and like and subscribe. Peace.